Okay, so now we're going to talk about the economics of the hardware. What do we do with the hardware on the engine? A lot of folks would say, well, let's just buy all new hardware. That's easy. That's the easy button. Well, there's a reason why we might not want to do that. There is, on some instances, good reason to do that. What we're going to do, and I'll move to a close up here in just a second. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through the economics of why it's a good thing to either buy new hardware or to get your old hardware reconditioned or replated. Coming up. And we're back. Okay, so what we've done is we've taken all the loose hardware for this 0360. Everything that is going to be, I'm going to say, kept. Okay, so we've taken all the old hoses and things like that. Some of the other items that we know that are either going to be thrown away for sure, or items that may be refurbished, hose clamps, things like that for the intake tubes and the oil drain back tubes. Some of those, we'll take a look at those. See if we're going to replace those. But right now, we'll call this just the raw hardware: nuts, bolts, washers, and then some of the steel bracketry and things of that nature. What we're trying to do here right now is, what do we do with this stuff? Do we buy all new, or do we take this, clean it up, bead blast it, whatnot, degrease it? We've already degreased it. I've got it all laid out here nice and pretty for you, something I normally don't do. But got it all laid out nice and pretty, and then what we're going to do is kind of dollarize it and see what the best business case is. So let me rearrange the camera just a second, and we're going to zoom in for you, and we'll start talking about this stuff. Hello, I'm back. Okay, so what we got here is all the different various hardware. I've separated it out into basic groups: nuts, bolts, washers, and then some steel bracketry. So our break point on plating is about $140 for a batch of plating to get this stuff replated. So is this worthwhile to do? Well, these nuts here, these are the cylinder base nuts. These are anywhere from $5 to $9 a piece. Let's make it $10 because that's easy. There's 18 of these, and there's 18 of these. So right there, that pretty much says, yeah, let's replate. Okay, so what we'll do is these will all be blasted and cleaned up. We'll also inspect these and go through them, make sure that they are what they're supposed to be. They're not torn up by wrenches and whatnot. These are the 1/4 inch, 5/16. These, I call these the common flat nuts for crankcase joints. This is the bottom of the crankcase attachment underneath in the sump area. These are some spacers. And these are all what they call type 1 cadmium plate. It's silver. It doesn't have the follow-on process, which you see on a normal. This is a type 2 cad, which is kind of the gold color. This is just a little bit better. They're both absolutely adequate. So that's what we're going to do. So the nuts, just looking at the nuts, if we were to buy all new cylinder base nuts, we've paid for that $140 cadmium plate batch charge. And it's $140 per 100 pounds. We'll probably bring in about 5 pounds of material. So we're kind of on the bottom edge of that economy, but we still are making money, so to speak. These are the the crankcase attaching hardware. Attach the two crankcase halves together. There's a couple other special bolts in here. Some of these we will not reuse. Certain bolts, such as the camshaft retention, or the crankshaft gear retention bolt, that gets replaced. Some of the idler stanchions in the back, the idler bosses, those plates or those bolts get replaced. The rest of these we'll kind of go through and double check and see what they are. This is accessory case bolts here. A lot of what I call cheddar cheese bolts. So I'm going through, and as I said, we're going to inspect and double check and all that. And one of the things I saw right away is, I'm looking at this one. It's kind of bright colored. It's a zinc hardware store bolt. This thing gets thrown out, so that's automatically gets thrown out. So there's some bogus hardware in here. Washers, you'll find that these are worth pennies a piece. So we've taken all the lock washers and removed those from the pile. Never use lock washers over, so those will all be replaced. Again, these are pennies a piece. We have a couple what I call special sized washers, some bigger ones. This is for the alternator mount. We'll probably clean those up. The rest of this we'll just buy new, so we won't even worry about this. This will be thrown in the bin. So that's that stuff. Cylinder cooling hardware and whatnot. These are about $22 a piece, something like that. These are about $10 a piece. Again, that makes good sense. This is a engine hoist, another $20. This bracket here is probably hundreds of dollars because I can't even find a part breakout on it. The valve covers, now we haven't finished stripping these. These are about $20 to $30 a piece. So 4 of those, 120 bucks. We've just made the case for again, replating. So that's what we're going to do on this. Some of the stuff that we are going to definitely throw away. This is the valve cover, rocker cover hardware. These screws here, some of them look like they're in pretty good shape, but they have an integral locking washer on them. So we'll buy all new screws on those and put all new hardware in there. This is alternator bracket. This is our oil screen, our lower oil screen. This is the one that the folks were not changing. I think if you recall last time I told you they had some bugs and some plastic in there, so somebody wasn't changing that. This will get this steel part will be replated. This is more alternator attached bracketry and starter bracketry. So that's where we are there. On this engine, it makes good sense to send it out and have the parts replated. The other thing I'll do is I'll take pictures of these different piles, and so that when I send it out to plate, I can do an inventory when it comes back, just to make sure they removed everything from the basket and all that. So that's whoops, my camera fell down. So that's where we are with the plating. Hope this makes some sense for you. Again, that's how we make the business sense of whether or not we want to replate or replace these parts. Most importantly is it on the steel parts if you're getting a cadmium plating done. Now in some countries, I believe Australia, they don't have cadmium plating. It's been outlawed and all that, but it's the best corrosion preventive process available. It's just not the friendliest to the earth. Even though cadmium kind of comes from the earth. Who knew? So what we're going to do is we're going to get this stuff replated, and then we're also going to have it baked. Most importantly, you'll have some people asking about hydrogen embrittlement. What about that? Because during the process of plating, it will go into an acid tank. I believe it's hydrochloric. It'll go into an acid tank, and hydrogen will go in there. So what we want to do is bake those parts so that the hydrogen comes out. So when we are having plating done, we're going to specify either a type 1 or type 2, yellow or gold, depending on what the majority of the engine is. Then we will also require a bake. We'll request a bake, and then we also will request certs. So we want to get certification on this, and that's kind of a double check to make sure they do what they did. So that's another thing we're going to do too. So we're going to get CAD plate certification, CAD plate, bake, and certification. So make sure this all goes together. Now we are not doing things like connecting rod bolts. They're being replaced. We're going to the service bolt and the overhaul manuals. Certain items will not get touched. This is just what I call secondary hardware, save for the cylinder hold downs, but this is not critical hardware. The critical hardware normally, in most cases, in many engines, will be replaced 100%. So that's where we are here. On to more cleaning and inspecting and all that. Like I said, we had one little junk bolt come in there, so that's kick that one out of the pool. That's it for business case on nuts and bolts.